Mark Trestman. Did I just spend the last 3 hours watching the reincarnation of Joe Montana? Time will tell, but tonight and the last 6 weeks have me thinking.
Talking about Brock Purdy.
Mark Trestman, while laughingstock, right, as a head coach, do you know that he came to the 49ers later in his career, but he was in the NFL after Joe Montana.
Yeah.
In the 80s. He worked in the NFL in the 80s for teams that would have played Joe Montana. And I would imagine by the time when you joined the Niners in 95, 96, Steve's the quarterback, but there's plenty of Joe Montana stories in the building, tape. Eddie still owned the team at the time. Like, you're part of the Niner lore. Like, if you're part of the Packers lore, you still talk about Brett Favre, right? I mean, so I'm not saying this tweet is gospel or anything, but this is not just some random nobody tweeting this out, right? Just this guy's coached in the NFL for a long, long time as an assistant coach. I remember Greg Papa used to talk about this guy. Like, Al really liked him, thought he was really smart. Clearly not a head coach, but rewatching the game, guy, the first half was very iffy, all over the map. When he is on, he is a very, very fun player to watch from an athletic standpoint. And when you watch that Peacock documentary, I'm not comparing the two. One thing that really stood out in that documentary on Joe, for those of us that, are more, we just grew up on Steve Young because we were born in fucking the mid 80s and the peak of Joe, is what a great athlete Joe was.
Yeah.
And I think if you would ask me, you, most people that just went to practices, maybe the 49ers coaches had somewhat of a better idea at practice, but I think it'd be hard to say. Maybe the scouts would know, have been blown away by how good of an athlete Brock Purdy is. But then when you look back, you go, well, he was the player of the year, not like at his high school, in the state of Arizona. Like, I would say that's not nothing.
A lot of really good quarterbacks come out of Arizona.
I'd say a lot of really good athletes, right?
A lot of good athletes, yeah.
It's not California, Texas, or Florida, but I would say it's kind of like the West Coast, like a Georgia. I mean, it produces a ton of Division I players. I'd say basketball and football. Wasn't DeAndre Ayton an Arizona kid?
Yeah, I mean, he's from the Bahamas.
Yeah, transferred in. There might have been some payments made for him to move here to get him.
Yeah, I wouldn't say he was not
born and raised in Gilbert.
Yeah, not exactly.
Just from Chandler, Arizona, for the last 7 weeks.
Established some residency.
I think when you first saw this guy, and most 49er fans had probably heard of him, right? College, you maybe watch a Big 12 game here or there. But like in the preseason, and you just see this little white guy, the first thing you don't think is a good athlete. Like, that would not come to mind. Where Joe, people our age, when Joe's drafted in the late 70s, he'd played at Notre Dame. Like, he was a much more famous player, I would guess, right, at 21 years old than Brock Purdy. Just given the institution. How big do you think Notre Dame was late 70s? Probably pretty friggin' big.
I mean, what kind of ratings was their national? That was the only game a lot of people watched.
Pretty big. Joe, you and I've been around him, is not the tallest guy. Not the tallest guy.
Shrunk a little, probably, but
in his heyday, 6'2" max. Like, he wasn't John Elway walking through the door.
He wasn't thick. I mean, he took a beating, right?
Took a fucking peppering. I would say the way you play now, right, than you played back then. Protect the quarterback. Because you would say Joe's toughness, like we talk about like all-time tough players like Singletary and like Lester Hayes and Jim Ott, just the famous NFL crazy tough guys, the Matthews family, whoever. The sport, like, you're not just sitting in the pocket and getting hit by LT. Like, Joe's toughness scale is probably like equivalent of like Mike Tyson. Over the years, back braces, ribs, like how truly tough the guy was. You don't really have to do that anymore because you're not getting hit like that, one. And two, I would say Kyle's offense is much more movement based than they would probably just sit in the pocket 3-5-step drops in Walsh's original offense. I'm not saying they didn't move him, but it felt like he was more truly just a pocket quarterback than it's going to be asked of Brock Purdy. Just the way Kyle wants to play, based on Boots being a huge part of his passing game. I mean, what would you say? I mean, we could look this up, but on average, 10 throws on the move for Kyle a game he ain't throwing it 40 times, so of 25.
Yeah, I mean, you're saying basically like almost half of his throws come on the move.
Feels like a little less than that, but
I'd say maybe 7 intentionally. Not to mention just some of the move around, and then do you count that move around and dump down?
I'm just calling like the play is called. He's gonna either roll to his left or the right. You're right, 7. But if I'm doing 30 attempts, I mean, we're already at what 28 to 30% right away. Like
Trestman,
Tom Brady of the 66 was 0, correct?
No. Oh, by design, yeah.
Yeah, I'm saying by design. He had some of those rollouts.
He had the rollout throw back to the end zone on Monday night that nobody was open.
Or Tom gets hit and he kind of like craters and the ball kind of goes. That's a tough watch.
Yeah, that was not good for the whoever was assigned by Shanahan to study Brady last night. They did not come back with a glowing report.
No.
Trestman, who writes for Mike Tannenbaum's site, 33rd Team, wrote about Purdy. He has the innate ability to slow down the chaos of the game and see the field with the inherent ability to feel and avoid pressure in the pocket. He has the uncanny sense of timing and the courage to stand in and deliver, knowing he'll get hit. Yet he also has the athleticism and ability to find a quiet space to deliver the ball, as well as agility, niftiness, and foot quickness to extend the play in the pocket. I would say the innate ability to slow down the chaos of the game is one of the most desired, maybe the most desired characteristic. Would you say?
Well, I think the 3 big boys playing in the AFC, and it feels like Trevor Lawrence is on a car that's headed that way over the next couple of years to join the boys. They all feel like they got that in their back pocket, right?
Yeah.
And it's why Patrick, Joe Burrow, and Josh Allen are considered the 3 best quarterbacks in the league.
Do you think if you can do that, like if you have elite slow the game down ability, you can play with below average arm strength? Average arm strength?
Yeah, I think he's got an average. I thought his
arm was a little... I'm not asking you about Brock. I'm just saying generally, like, what's the floor of how talented you have to be if you can slow the game down mentally?
If you're good enough where you're in the NFL and you can do that, you're playing in the league.
Yeah.
Like, because just to get there, like if you've made the team or whatever, it's good enough.
Like Breeze's arm, Breeze's arm sometimes on a deep ball would look good.
I mean, Rivers' arm wasn't great.
Yeah. But he had physicality and
he could see.
Yeah.